I'm interested to hear about a deal you closed involving a realtor. How did it go? How did you pay them? So you can 100, this is a question I get all the time, right? You can 100% do deals that are listed on the MLS. I do them all the time. My students do them all the time. Anyone who tells you otherwise, people say the only deals to go after are off-market deals. There are no deals on market. And the reality is, on market just means they're listed by a realtor. They're listed on the MLS. So check this out. If you were motivated in the sense that maybe you have a rental property and it's now vacant. Maybe you inherited a property. Maybe you're getting a divorce. Maybe you're in pre-foreclosure. All the different criteria we know about motivated sellers. Combination thereof, tax delinquent, whatever it is, right? Most people don't know that wholesalers exist. Most people don't know what we do. Most people don't know how to get in touch with investors. That's why this business can be very lucrative, right? But I'm gonna get to that in just 1 second. So what would you do? You would just call a realtor. You probably know an auntie or uncle or someone who's a realtor. You say, hey, can you sell this for me? And that happens all the time. So you can find deals on the MLS. It's just there's a certain way to go about looking for them. One way you can do that is by looking through the description for criteria or things that are indicative of distress, right? So sometimes these listings will say cash only, or they'll say roof damage, things that don't qualify for traditional loans. Now, if you're dealing with a realtor, there's a couple different things you want to do. First of all, you have to realize that in general, like Brittany's saying here, the realtor is getting paid by the seller. So oftentimes as a wholesaler, that has absolutely nothing to do with you. Some people ask about, there are times where if it's appropriate, you can, if that's what it takes to get the deal done, try and be kind of an intermediary between the seller and their realtor. But typically, like 90% of the time, you don't want to do that. Those guys are going to figure it out. If the realtor chooses to drop their commission or something like that, they'll do that. And the seller, oftentimes that realtor is going to get paid out of the proceeds of the sale. So that's typically not going to affect you. One thing that will help you is to make sure that you are always going through the listing agent. And the reason is because we are appealing to people's self-interest, right? So what happens is the majority of deals are sold by way of the listing agent is the person who puts the property onto the MLS. And what happens is, it gets, all the other realtors can see it. And then you'll typically have a buyer's agent that comes in and brings the buyers, they see the house. And then in that case, they split the commission. So if we're looking at a typical 6% commission, well, that person is essentially losing half of their paycheck, half their commission. So what that means is that if I make an offer on a house for $100,000 directly to a listing agent, even though, they're in most cases have a responsibility to the seller. First of all, they have to present all offers, but they have a fiduciary responsibility where they're supposed to be looking out for the seller's best interest. A lot of times people are motivated, again, by self-interest. So if I make an offer for $100,000, they're going to make direct with them. They're going to make $6,000. Now, if someone else comes in, they make an offer for $120,000. The total commission, I think, is like $7,200, but now they're splitting that in half. So they're only making $3,600 on the same deal, despite that other offer being $20,000 higher. The other thing that these realtors will oftentimes do is they're not the decision makers. That's one thing you have to realize, but they do have significant influence over sellers in most cases. So if I come in with a $100,000 offer, they might be in that seller's ear saying, hey, this guy's really serious. He's paying cash. You should go with him. As opposed to, if someone's coming with a 120 offer, they might try and discourage that a little bit. All right. So, the other side of this is sometimes, there are buyer's agents and other realtors who do work with investors. And so a lot of times if I send a deal out, for example, they might come to me and say, hey, Mike, I have a buyer for you. And so typically the way that I'll structure those deals is we'll just do a joint venture split. You can do that by either offering a flat fee that you negotiate with that buyer's agent, or you can, just give them 50% of your profit, explain to them what you do. And this is where you kind of have to learn to sell yourself, because you don't want to sell them on hey, I'll give you half of just this one deal. What you want to do is say to them listen, I'm in this business. I do this all the time. Your average realtors may be working with, maybe one client at a time, or, the average homeowner, they're buying a house for their personal residence or something, or they're not buying all the time. But you go to that realtor, you say, listen, I'm doing, 6 deals this month. And if you keep feeding me these buyers, make it You want to show them how it's going to be beneficial to them in the long term, right? So when you do it that way, you know, maybe that 50% that you're offering is not as much as their commission would be. In most cases, probably going to be more. But let's just say, for example, it's not. You're not selling them on the one deal. You're selling them on the relationship and the joint venture business that you guys can do for the foreseeable future. But in most cases, that commission, you know, if there's a seller's agent involved, they're going to get 100% of their commission. And then if there's a buyer's agent that you're working with that brings an investor to the deal, then you can just split it as a JV agreement, or some of these realtors will accept a flat fee. That's going to come down to the actual numbers on the deal, what you feel comfortable with. My thing is like, listen, do right by people. You know, if they're bringing a buyer that you wouldn't have otherwise had access to, go ahead and split that deal with them, and you guys can do future business together. Tristan, I just answered these, so I'm gonna let you watch the replay, man. But yeah, I'll send them to you, man. I'll send you the resources I use. Privy and ReFX are the ones that I talked about. And yes, I do look for homes on the MLS. And I have a video on YouTube. And man, I forgot what it's called right now, but it actually walks you through the whole process. I show you like a screen share of the system I use, what criteria I use to build out my list, how I pull them, how I make the offers, and there are a couple examples where I walk you through actual deals that I've done, so you can see it, see the emails that go out, see the offers that go out, and all that stuff. I'll probably cut this live up, and then I'll put the links in the description so you can see that there.